And welcome to episode number 90 of the Liberator Podcast.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, that's almost 100.
If someone would have said, "You think you'll ever make it to episode 90?" I would have said, "No, we're going to stop at like 25."
Well, in the beginning, most people would say we weren't going to make it to episode 1. So
yeah, it took us 6 months to make it to episode 1.
Yeah,
and then you guys have been making it happen since.
Yeah. So anyway,
episode 90.
Episode 90.
Confetti.
Yep.
In 10 episodes.
Got the whole crew here today. James Silberman, Sam Riley, T. Russell Hunter. Studio audience today. A guest of Mr. Sam Riley's is here with us.
My fiance Hannah.
Yeah.
Sitting right there.
So a few things on that. If Sam just kind of like wanders off and starts like frolicking through a forest in his mind or gazing longingly off to the side here, you'll know what that's about.
Yep.
If I make weird, awkward comments, you'll know what that's about.
Yeah. Just full disclosure.
Full disclosure.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And we have one more guest with us, Mr. Paul Abbott. He is a good friend of ours. He is on the board of the new organization that we're going to be talking about today, End Abortion Alabama. He has worked on various political campaigns, including John Jacobs and David Buboltz, and he is just generally one of the best political minds we have in the movement, and so we are very excited to have him on today. Welcome, Paul Abbott.
Hello. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. How long have you been? I feel like you've been around for a long time. James just said all this officially stuff. Like you've got official titles and stuff, but like you've been a part of the abolition movement for
6 years.
6 years. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You've become like a regular fixture at things. So
yeah.
Great to have you on.
Yeah. How did that happen? How did you become an abolitionist, become aware, join the movement?
Yeah. So like many people, I was really an abolitionist before I had heard of abolitionism. Way back in 2004, John Kerry versus George Bush, I heard a preacher talk about how George Bush was not pro-life, he was pro-abortion with exceptions. And my earliest conversation about this was when I was, this was been like winter of 2007. I was 10. I remember talking to another boy about this and like telling him that, well, no, George Bush isn't pro-life. He's pro-death, but he's against some ways of death.
So you started seeing that there's a clearly something inadequate about the pro-life establishment type thing pretty early on, all the way back to 2000.
Yeah, and I wasn't even involved in any way. I was not. It was just things I would hear here and there. My family back then wasn't fighting abortion really. And then remember hearing about the 2006 case, I guess it was, Gonzalez versus Carhart, partial birth abortion ban, goes before the Supreme Court. Remember hearing from a preacher then that partial birth abortion ban was wicked because it codified legal murder. Mm-hmm. And then 2013 with HB2 in Texas, which it was a 20-week ban, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of. Was that?
It was like it was a 20-week ban, but then it was like all this visiting privileges.
Yeah, 20-week ban plus like different rules about abortion facilities and that stuff. And that made a lot of news around the nation. There was, of course, a massive crowd turned out for that at the Capitol in Austin, Texas. And we had the Wendy Davis filibuster and all that. I remember, again, just hearing people talking at that time and thinking about, this, I'm not sure this is actually something I should support. I mean, obviously I want all abortions outlawed, but even this, it is seeking to limit abortion somehow. I think that is an unjust law that if I were in their place, I probably would be voting against.
Yeah. Wow.
And also from a young age, my parents taught me, principles of biblical jurisprudence. You obey God's law rather than man's law. The federal government is not ultimate. We have a duty to uphold justice no matter what they say. So then in 2015, when I first heard about AHA, I think it was just from a video recommendation on YouTube probably. And we're seeing some outreach activism video, just a short thing. I remember thinking, this group, they're against abortion. This seemed to take a hard line. I didn't really think much about it. But then in December of 2015 was when things really started clicking for me. I actually read an article from a man who's not an abolitionist. This was written around 2005 by Scott Whiteman. I read 2 articles by him. And he took a very hard line against any politician, not just politicians. His article had everybody. It hit pastors, individual citizens, everyone. We have not done what we could to uphold justice. We must fight the feds. We must treat abortion like murder immediately now. This is our duty before God. That article shook me up. I wasn't just thinking about abortion, but it was like, I was thinking, how could I vote for any politician who doesn't demand immediate justice for the 3,000 plus children being murdered every day in our country? So it was just a few weeks after that, in January of 2016, that I was on YouTube again and was recommended a video by Scott Herndon from North Idaho. And it was maybe 40 minutes, and he just went through point by point of what abolitionists believe. Every point I was like, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so then I showed it to my mom and some of my siblings, like, this is the truth right here.
Yeah. You found the Kool-Aid.
Yes. Yes. That was January 2016. And then right after that was it was actually right around that time that I first joined Facebook. And so then I started, finding people that were saying similar things or following different abolitionists. It was also right in that time when I started working at the Capitol in Georgia, my first foray in anything political. I met a lobbyist of Georgia Right to Life, which is one of the at least 3 Right to Life groups that have been kicked out of National Right to Life because they will not support bills that have exceptions for, life of the mother or rape or incest or whatever.
That's right.
And so it was my first time really speaking about abortion, activism, that kind of stuff with someone who was involved. And then right around that time, there in the winter of 2016, our family went out to the abortion mill in Forest Park, Georgia, a little south of Atlanta. That was our first time doing that sort of ministry. And then so I started, so I followed abolitionists, just on the internet for a year or so. I saw Joseph Silk take SB 1118 and amend that, and I was there at the Georgia Capitol, had it up on my computer because 1118 was supposed to come up for a vote until he changed it, and so I was watching the live stream of the Oklahoma Senate, see if that bill was going to come up. Of course, they didn't bring it up at that point. And then in 2017, our family, we travel. My dad's a preacher, and we travel around the country. My dad has, for past 11 years, my dad preached in churches around the country. And so we were staying in Ohio and staying with just a random family. We had never met them before. But through this hospitality network, we had found them. And we had just gone to abortion mill twice previously, about a year prior. So we visit this family, we're walking around the house, she's showing us around, and I see some pictures on her wall. And I think, wait, that's Toby Harmon. What are you guys doing on her wall? Then I look at her wrist and she has an AHA bracelet on. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
It was Sarah Cleveland.
That's funny.
Oh.
You're like, are we in a cult? Why are these people from Facebook on your wall?
And so I told her that, I had just talked to my parents recently. Before that, I think we should make abortion ministry a part of our traveling ministry. This is something we should be doing regularly. I was convicted before that, short time before that, being convicted. I had not been sharing the gospel with people, and I thought this would be a good way to do that, to go out to the abortion mills. And so Sarah Cleveland has 2 dozen of the big signs out in her garage. So she said, we'll take a couple of them. So we took 2 of them, went out to the abortion mill there in Columbus, Ohio the next day. we know what we're doing. We got there, I think, after they already closed. Today it's permanently closed. It was Founders. It's closed down for good now.
Yep.
That was our kind of the beginning of our ministry in that way out on the sidewalks.
Man, yeah, that's awesome. So you're obviously a very political person, and that's one of the main reasons that we've got you on today. But you're also very theologically driven, and so like Sam here and like our colleague Rachel, you're big on singing the Psalms, and you guys kind of go do that at abortion mills around the country. So talk about why you guys do that and the importance of doing that.
Book of Psalms for worship.
Yeah.
Crown and County Publications. I have several psalters, but that's the one I typically use. It's one of the more recently made ones, and it's very user friendly. But singing psalms is something I've been doing for less time than I've been going to the worship mills. Actually, it's not something I grew up doing. I think for most of us, we didn't grow up singing the psalter, the metrical psalms, and probably singing the psalms. Actually, another thing that really Facebook helped me with. I started seeing these really weird posts in the Reformed Pub from these guys that call themselves covenanters, who just, I mean, they had some of the oddest ideas, but then they started talking about singing psalms, and I'm thinking, well, I don't see this exclusive psalmody thing, but certainly they have a point that we should be singing some psalms. That seems to be a clear command here that I've been missing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got psalters, and I bring this everywhere, and not just the worship mill. I'm normally going to have it with me. If you see me, ask me if I have my psalter. So I carry around almost everywhere. I always want to be ready to sing.
Yeah.
And at the abortion mill, I mean, that is one of the hardest hardest areas that you can be at. It's one of the most tense situations that you can be involved in, and then you really see when you're out on the sidewalk just the most radical manifestations of depravity. Mm-hmm. And you see and it's not just about abortion, because they'll bring up all sorts of things, whether it's sexual assault or homosexuality, whatever, it all manifests there. Mm-hmm. Just the worst forms of sin. And you realize that you need something to combat that. Yeah. We cannot do that in our own strength. And in the Psalms, particularly as compared with more traditional hymns, you find a lot more mentions of justice, of righteousness, of the law. I mean, Psalm 119, almost every single verse, 176 verses, references God's law, his statutes, his testimonies, his commandments, or whatever. And so you really will see you have a fuller scope, a fuller range when you use the Psalms. Also, another thing is, especially in Huntsville, one of the desk escorts there, her name is Krista. She grew up in church, and so she knows a lot of our hymns. And if we sing a hymn, she'll join in with us, which is
that's gross,
pretty demoralizing. And so if we sing Psalms, though, her traditional Southern church didn't sing any Psalms, because she doesn't know what to do with those. I mean, but Psalm 2, Psalm 94 especially. Psalm 94 typically is when I've been there for a while and I'm feeling angry. Mm-hmm. Psalm 94, God of vengeance, O Jehovah.
Yeah, there's not going to be a whole lot of hymns talking about, godly government and God breaking the arms and teeth of the wicked and that sort of thing.
Not just hymns, but can you imagine Bethel? Like Bethel Music making a song
Bethel
about...
made a recent one talking about breaking the teeth of the wicked.
Yeah.
They didn't.
And Psalm 94 says, God the Lord from whom is vengeance. Psalm 94 says, God the Lord from whom is vengeance, God avenger, O shine forth, judge of all the earth, O rise up, pay the proud what they are worth. And then it goes on to say later in the psalm, they, O Lord, beat down your people and your heritage oppressed. They kill foreigner and widow. They have slain the fatherless. Mm-hmm. And that is exactly what we are dealing with there, murdering someone who's not maybe physically, technically fatherless, but has been abandoned in the worst possible way by father and mother.
Well, there are no human beings who are technically fatherless, so it's definitely I mean, you can't produce anyone without a biological dad. So it's definitely the fatherless children, the abandoned. But I want to point this out for like our viewers, that we got a guy on here who's, we're having you on because you're kind of a political expert and you're actively involved in legislation, candidates, the gamut in that area, public policy and all that. And yet here we are talking about being at a place where children are being sacrificed and all the darkness and the sin and the grief and the evil that's going on there. And then you combating it with, mixed metaphor here, light in the singing of the Psalms.
Yep.
And that usually, people kind of in anti-abortion circles, it's like you'll have like people who like veer towards the prophetic and the repent and the righteous and like the protesting, and then the compassionate, like the going and the helping, or people who do legal political stuff, and then people who do like street activism. But you're doing what what I've always thought is like the right thing in combining assistance, agitation, going to the mills, going to the capitals, being politically active, but also just being sort of active with individuals, saving as many babies as you can by going to these places and having conversations, and also advocating total and immediate abolition. So you're kind of our model citizen.
Yeah, it's not even just the fact that you're combining all those things, but the view that goes into all those things is very consistent across the board. You're not applying a different type of worldview or approach to politics, but just applying Christianity, the Lordship of Christ, to every realm, which is what we all need to do.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Consistent ethic across every instance and situation.
Yeah, and I don't know who the quote belongs to, probably someone dead a long time ago, but this sort of like separating the political from the prophetic. Like as that, if you're going to like run campaigns or be politically involved, you have to separate. You can't be the guy who's like singing psalms at the abortion mill and also running for office. Like that just doesn't work. Like I think of like John Jacob in Indiana. He's like, he's literally, he is an elected official in the state of Indiana. Mm-hmm. And before he did that, he was like carrying around like AHA signs, like abortion images signs.
In the Capitol.
With the bullhorn. Preaching
with a bullhorn preaching. And it's like, people look at that.
I was there. I believe the first time I met John Jacob was before he had announced run for office, and he was at the Capitol dressed as the Grim Reaper.
Yeah, and you're like, this guy's going to run for office? That can't. All the political consultants in the world is like, nope, no, not a prayer. Yeah. And then there he is. Probably being prophetic on a regular day in and day out basis up there and getting quite frustrated with him. But I do like to note just the seamless, like that you can be all these things consistently. Yeah. Like under what the Lordship of Christ can reign in all areas equally.
And you should be all these things consistently.
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of transitioning into the political side here, just talk about how you got into politics and what you've been up to for the last couple of years.
Yes. I first got involved in politics in 2016. It's about a little over 6 years ago. Before that, growing up, I was an avid reader of history. I read Ron Paul. I read books about the Constitution. I would, from the time I was 16, I was just watching live streams of random days in the U.S. Senate, just watching C-SPAN, just trying to learn about what they were doing.
This is like a weird torture or something that you subjected yourself to. So I was 16. I was watching C-SPAN for hours. It's like
I was
people used to whip themselves too.
This is interesting to me.
Yeah.
And from a young age, I just assumed, one day I'll be involved in politics. Maybe I'll run for office myself one day. So then about 6 years ago is my brother Andrew who took the initiative, and our family never really did any sort of activism in any sort of sense before, but we knew someone who's all in politics. He asked him like, what can I do? And so he got him a job working as an aide to a state senator in Georgia. So then a few weeks later, I started working for another state senator in Georgia. And it was right at that time that I had seen the Scott Herndon video and was learning about abolitionists. It was right at that. It was while I was working there at the Georgia Capitol that I heard about Joseph Silt carrying SB 1118. And so, but at first though, it wasn't really any sort of dealing with abortion in particular there. But then after that legislative session ended, I worked full time on a congressional campaign for 4 months. That was really where I got my first view of politics. Learned a lot on that campaign. We lost, which I'm glad for. It was I probably learned more in losing that campaign than I would have if we had won. I was able to have more retrospection on what I've been involved in. But so 2016, spring and summer, being in politics, just jumping in the deep end, that was, a big learning experience for me. As far as abortion in particular, that got started in early 2017. At that point, we'd moved from Georgia to Alabama, where I live now. And again, like I had said, I was already, at this point, I was, I agree with the abolitionists. I agree we need to defy Roe. We need to treat abortion like murder. We need to establish equal justice, equal protection. And then I get a phone call from someone who a friend of mine had put in touch with me, saying that he had just been stricken with this idea. This was not something coming from like long-term living. It was just like all of a sudden he thought, hey, what if we just defied the federal courts and outlawed abortion in Alabama? And so that man was Sam McClure, who's an attorney who lives in Montgomery now, who's in Birmingham at the time. Mm-hmm. And so it was really through Sam McClure's inspiration and pulling me into what he was involved in was really got me started doing political activism as concerning abortion. And so in 2017, what we're working on was something called Proposal 16. The 16 came from the estimated number of babies that are murdered every day in Alabama. Mm-hmm. And that effort was merely trying to put pressure on the governor of Alabama to just protect children. We didn't really have a detailed policy proposal. It was just saying, governor, interpose, stop the killing.
Right.
And so that went on for a few months, and that effort kind of fizzled for several different reasons. Other people involved in it went on. They had other things they're working on. But yeah, that Proposal 16 effort was my first attempt at sort of abolitionist activism.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's funny you bring these things up, and I'm like, oh yeah, I do remember that. Sam McClure. Proposal, it's weird. That's like seems forever ago, but then also it's kind of like, yeah, wasn't that like just yesterday?
Well, that's actually how I first met Russell, was through that. Is in spring of 2017, my family was traveling the Midwest, and I sent you a message over Facebook.
Uh-oh.
Said, should we like meet for lunch or something?
Oh, it's right. We met at that soda pop place out there by Lake Arcadia. What is it?
Yes.
I don't know. I drove
or Soda Pop.
It's like at a big. It's like on Route 66. What's that place called?
I don't remember the name of it. I know, they had a bunch of glass soda bottles like up on the wall.
Yeah, that's right. You're like, hey, you want to hang out for like an hour, and I probably like talk to you in a booth for like 3 hours or something like that. Something crazy.
Yeah, that was about how it went.
Did he tell you about dinosaurs then, or no?
No, I'm still waiting.
Yeah,
I'm still waiting on that.
Yeah. Edit that out. My goodness. We don't want people knowing that I know how the dinosaurs went extinct.
No, thank you, Sam.
Everyone watches shows like, don't we all know?
I was actually looking for a loophole to bring that up. So hoping to bring that up.
We're going to put that behind a paywall. That's for $1,000 a month donors.
Yeah.
That's good.
The answer will be given to anyone who donates $1 million immediately, we promise.
Yeah. For people watching, they're like, is this a real thing? Yes, it's a real thing. But no, yeah, I do remember that because I think I'd seen you on Facebook and stuff, and I knew who you were because you were like just getting really active. And I can't remember. You're just like, hey, I'm just kind of in the area. You want to hang out or something? And we're just like, sure. And we just drove down, and I was like, yep, this guy is going to be one of those people that make me feel bad about how lazy I sometimes am. You just seem like very hardcore and going to be doing it.
That was in the context of Proposal 16.
Right.
And I hadn't really met any abolitionists up to that point. It was just online. And so just talking, like seeing, getting ideas like what we could do.
And you're probably told, don't meet with this guy. He's really bad for these 6 reasons. And the Holy Spirit said, yeah, just give it a shot. And then you found out that 5 of them were.
That just came after. Like the week later, I was getting phone calls from people worried that I met with you.
Yeah. Well, look, it didn't work, but I guess maybe it worked. Who knows? It happened. You're still here. But no, that's good, because there are people who do kind of come and go. Like they'll get a little bug, there'll be something like Proposal 16 or some kind of a thing happen, like a Planned Parenthood sting or, baby body parts. Something happens, they get involved in this, and then, after banging your head against the wall of the fight of abortion for a year and a half, they kind of just disappear. And you kind of, like, I couldn't sit down and make a list. There's so many people that are like that. Like, yeah, I mean, I had a burger with that guy, but I can't remember. But yeah, that it stuck for you. And I think it's like on our thing. It was, James had mentioned it a little bit ago. It's just like, yeah, for people who are doing this because they love the Lord, they love his word, they do love his law, it's just sort of like a desire for justice. They kind of press on and remain, even when things like Proposal 16 fizzle out or whenever candidates lose. It's like, well, no, you're not there for the excitement of that event or that project. You're doing whatever you can consistently. So, yeah, praise God that you're still young and you're hardcore and you're not running away from this battle. So,
yeah,
it's good.
And so along those lines, let's talk about the organization that you are getting started there in Alabama. So tell us about what you've got going on and who you're doing it with and how people can connect with what you've got going.
Well, Proposal 16 fizzled out in 2017. And after that, not much happened in Alabama. I live 3 hours from the Capitol. There's hardly anyone else in the state that was really involved in that way, that wanted to be involved in the political side of things. There are people that got to abortion mills, but that was their zone, what they wanted to do. And so I was waiting and praying that God would bring other people that wanted to do something politically. I was looking at other states that were moving along, Oklahoma, Texas, Indiana, and others, and praying specifically that God would bring pastors that would want to get involved and lead here in our state, and that this wouldn't just be a few just random Christians from different churches, but it would be body driven. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I was more involved in other things, like helping with the John Jacob campaign in Indiana, or David Buboltz in North Carolina, or going to rallies at the capitals in Oklahoma and Missouri and Kansas, Indiana, North Carolina. I think I've been to 5 abolition rallies, 5 different other states, but never in Alabama.
You're changing that.
Yeah. So waiting and praying for 4 years or so, just going out to the mill here, but that was about it. And then last fall, I was made aware of DJ Parton, who lives in the Montgomery area, and he is a lobbyist with the National Association for Gun Rights, NAGR, which is a very strict, hardcore gun rights lobby that puts the NRA to shame with the no nonsense approach they have to defending our right to keep and bear arms. Mm-hmm. And so he had been involved in that, and so he had a lot of political experience in that way, but he had never really been involved in fighting abortion. But from watching Apologia, he had felt that he needed to be involved in that and was looking for ways to get involved. And so him, myself, and then Megan Pierce, who lives in Alabama, the 3 of us got together, and we decided that we could start an organization to to be that voice here in our state, that to mobilize the church, to seek justice and to put pressure on our civil magistrates to enact justice.
Mm-hmm. Right on.
Nice. And you guys are End Abortion Alabama. You didn't go with Abolish Abortion Alabama because of AAA?
There were several reasons. There is another group called the Abolitionists of Abortion in Alabama or something like that.
Oh, there is?
Already. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're pretty small, but that name was already, like, they have a YouTube channel, I think.
Yeah, I always looked at Alabama, like states like Alabama, like deep south of and you're like, why aren't there abolitionists there? Alabama was always one that I thought was kind of devoid of organized abolitionist groups. So I don't even know who that is that you're talking about. Hopefully they're not watching this. We're like, dude, you know what? I can't think of right now who the abolitionist group is in Alabama. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm not gonna engage you in a big long debate about using end over abolish. We want to.
No, Rachel took care of that.
Yeah, yeah. For organization names, it's good. For like legislation, it's you wouldn't write. We're going to end. Criminalize it, abolish it.
Well, let me say this: I am an abolitionist of human abortion, and the bill that we have drafted already is titled the Abolition of Abortion Alabama Act.
Yeah, and that is helpful. That's all we need. We're not going to harangue you about.
And that's quadruple A, so it works.
Yeah, you're You're way more of an abolitionist than me. So
it doesn't confuse people.
Yeah.
They think you're going to get a toe or something.
You broached the subject though, which people are like, man, is this guy just hard? There's good reasons for this sort of debate and discussion, but no reason to divide with anyone when they use. I use the E word as a synonym for what I'd like to see happen. I just happen to also think we're not going to end abortion until like the second coming, but I think we can abolish it, and that would curtail it quite a bit. But ending it would kind of require there being no sin, and so on and so forth. So I have my reasons, but.
In any case,
everyone's just like fast forwarding. It's like, can we take the soapbox from this guy on this? It's like, you don't abolish a book when you end it. No, I'm sorry.
We wouldn't mind crisis coming back and ending it either. Like that's also cool with our group. So
yeah,
we
are also cool with that.
Yeah, we're cool with it. But some people, like every time you pass any bill, even if it's like a fake pro-life bill that's being heralded in the media as like abolishing abortion or ending abortion has been ended in Oklahoma, people always say they're just going to do it anyway, and you're like, yes, they are, but it's going to be a criminal act, and at least the laws at our state capitol will be just, and we won't be sinning there, and we can enforce them. And so I think it, as silly as it sometimes seems, like word wrangling or whatever, I think there's like a kernel of an important thing there. It's like there is a good goal in writing just laws and then enforcing those just laws and then dealing with the reality. It's like, it's going to take some time and work and energy to apply them. It's like, I just read an 800-page book that was like how they enforced the Abolition of the Slave Trade Act. It's like they passed that was really good, but then they still had to sell all over the ocean and stop ships and all this kind of stuff. People were still going to abort their babies, but now we have the law helping us to do justice for the slaves or the babies or something like that. So that's why I bring that stuff up.
Well, this is partially related to our next question about your organization there, but I think we kind of skipped over this question on accident. But do you have any general advice for abolitionist candidates?
Oh, yeah. Because you've been involved, before you give that advice, you've been involved in how many campaigns?
I've been involved in, I believe, only 3 abolitionist campaigns, but then other campaigns with others who are not abolitionists, who either before I was an abolitionist or just I felt were very strong in other areas, and maybe did not use the abolition word, but did believe abortion was murder.
But so from a state of someone who knows and has experience, that's what general advice, because it's becoming more and more common that people are running for office, praise God. But then there's that question of okay, well, how do I run and hold this sort of even minority view among conservatives of advocating total immediate abolition. General advice on that.
So I mean, there's some really practical things. I think for one thing, you need to be efficient. The first campaign I worked on, our campaign headquarters were right next to a restaurant. And it was a busy restaurant, especially at dinner time. Lots of people would come. And someone commented, said, why don't we go and stand outside the restaurant and hand flyers, people coming in about the candidate. That's not a bad thing. It's just handing out flyers, whatever. That would be okay. It's just, would that be the best use of our time? And it absolutely would not be the best use of our time. There are many other ways that we can be getting in front of candidates. And so knocking on their door, if you get a targeted list and going knocking on their door, or sending a postcard and having that land in their mailbox, those are two of the best ways that you can get your message and get what really is most important in a primary, which most of the abolitionist candidates are running against a Republican incumbent in a safe Republican district. Really, name ID is what wins primary elections. And so getting your name, saying it as many times as you can. If I'm calling a voter for David Buboltz, want to say his name 3 times. Having their name, big name on a sign, if you're going to put a sign up, make sure they know who it is. It'd be nice to, have, you can write a paragraph of messaging about interposition and equal justice and all that. But if they don't know what the action step is here, how we're going to do something, it's not that effective. Also, I'd say that you can't be afraid to ask for money. And I don't mean to just put a donate button on the website and say, hey, please chip in $25. I mean, picking up your phone, calling your friends, and directly asking them for a specific amount. You'll be amazed at how much money you can raise doing that from people who may love you and support you, but if you didn't ask them, I was talking to someone from an abolition campaign a few weeks ago, and I talked to them for a while, and I had in my mind, they started talking about finances, and I thought, if they ask me, I'll donate. And they didn't ask. They didn't make it. There's lots of campaigns I can donate to, and if you're not directly doing that, that money is going to go somewhere else. A few days after that, another abolitionist candidate called me. He asked for $500. Well, I can give you something. I'm not, but he had the initiative to do that.
Hey, while we have you on here, can you send us $500? Just kidding. Go
on. But I did give him a donation. So I'd say that you have to be direct in that.
Yeah.
And raising funds is a major part of it, especially you as the candidate. There's other things that people that help you with the campaign can do, other things. Other people can go put out signs here, other people can design the website. But knocking people's doors and asking people directly for money is probably the two most effective ways that the individual candidate can be spending his time.
Those things are kind of connected. We talk about handing out flyers outside of a restaurant versus putting a postcard in people's mailboxes, one being more effective than the other. Well, one is free and the other is very expensive. And so I think once you start doing something like getting involved in political campaigns and so on and so forth, the need for money is there. It's just kind of like you can do a certain amount of work without money, just with volunteer, and you need the volunteers. But when you're talking about sending 50,000 pieces of mail to a district, that adds up. And then I think abolitionists, we've kind of had, we don't want to be the kind of people who ask for money all the time in a corrupt sort of way. And so that desire to push back against that, which we maybe see abuses of that in other movements, has led some people to believe that there just isn't a good way of asking for money. And so that can kind of bite us on the other end. But I'm glad you said that directly, because we know, even from doing Free the States, that, we want to, whenever we see a candidate we like, and we want to do robocalls in their area, it's good to be able to have a few $1,000s just to do that. Without the money, you can't do that. Mailers, you can't do it. So So, people are not asking for this money because of a lack of faith or a lack of, like whatever the desire for gain. It's because this work at this level, doing these things, mailers, callers, all that kind of stuff, requires money. So the abolitionist, this is a rebuke to myself and all abolitionists. Yeah, we have to become more and more comfortable asking for donations when the donations are going to be used for the growth of God's kingdom. So I'm glad.
Yeah, and that's what I've seen from abolitionist candidates around the country is them using that money wisely. This isn't, we don't have people, running for Congress against Nancy Pelosi and raising $2 million. That's just going to get wasted on, 30% of the vote. And these are people that are, actually putting that money back into, they're not using it to go stay at nice hotels while they campaign. Like they're buying those mailers. They are hiring people to design good websites, have the right font.
That's right. Yeah, that is right. It's very important. If you were to look at like my bank statement or something, there have been periods where like my wife could be like, what is this $480? What is Creative Market? I bought some fonts. Why couldn't you use the fonts that they had to change? So fonts are expensive.
We have fonts at home. The fonts at home. Some Common Sans.
Yeah. So I mean, things cost money, and you have to do things well, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I'm glad you're around enough of these campaigns that you can say without even really much of a hitch there. It's like, I don't see anyone mismanaging money. We're fallen people, there's sin, there's temptation, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I've been similarly well pleased just to see that, like, I haven't seen anyone sort of like, I've seen groups that kind of like come alongside abolitionism to see if they can kind of, hey, is there money here or whatever? But by and large, everyone is kind of taking up this kind of part of it, and I think doing it in a way that honors God.
Yeah, it's actually just the opposite of mismanaging money. It's candidates who are beating incumbents with sometimes a fourth of the budget.
Way less.
They're doing it very efficiently, and so that's a reason for anyone who's listening. If you've got candidates in your area or candidates that aren't even in your area, make sure you're involved in supporting them because they actually have a really good shot of getting elected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I think $5 to an abolitionist goes way further than like $5 to like because whenever I can't remember off the top of my head what like Warren Hamilton paid or raised versus Larry Boggs.
Yeah, he had about 1/4 of what Boggs, but between the money that Boggs had and the money that outside groups spent on behalf of Boggs, it was about 4 to 1 that he was outspent by Boggs.
And all that money wasn't just causing Warren Hamilton to win; it also was kind of seeding the culture with ideas. Yeah. Like with the Dan Fisher campaign, I can't remember the numbers off our top of our head, but Kevin Stitt, who won, spent like whatever. I think technically it was 100 million times more money than Dan Fisher. It was just a lot more money than Dan Fisher, but Dan didn't win, but all of that money and all that campaigning spread ideas, and those, it was worth it. If you donated to the Dan Fisher campaign, your money was well spent, and it's still bearing fruit because abolitionists aren't just running to win; they're also running to spread ideas and shift the culture.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And on the topic of candidates who are running to abolish abortion in Alabama, there's a guy by the name of Ernie Yarborough, and you actually are the one who put him on our radar for the first time when you mentioned him to me. Yeah. And he took our survey. He got 100%. He said he's going to abolish abortion. He's going to fight for immediate abolition, that he's not going to support bills that compromise with abortion, that the establishment will use to try to delay the abolition bill that he's promised to put forward. And his name is Ernie Yarborough. And so I believe his website is ernieyarborough.com.
That is?
We can throw right there.
Yeah.
Not clickable, but viewable.
Yep.
Viewable. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so he's one of a number. I know you guys have had some success with your survey as well. I went to your guys' website, endabortional.com, or is it .com or .org, or is it either?
endabortional.org.
.org. Yep. And you guys have a whole bunch of candidates who I guess took your survey and got 100%. And so you're going to be holding them to that if they get elected.
It's fantastic.
Yes. Yeah. So Ernie Yarborough, he's a friend of mine. And he's also a close friend of Darren Stids. And so I think Darren Stids was actually one of the first ones to push him on abolitionism. Mm-hmm. But he's running for state house. He is running against an incumbent, a one-term incumbent, a rather weak incumbent. So I think Ernie Yarborough has a good chance of winning that election. Yeah, and Ernie's actually one of several candidates who have committed to us that if they win, they will sponsor the abolition bill next session. So we are quite excited about that. Ernie Yarbrough is one. Another one who's a friend of DJ Parton's, another member of our board. He lives in Eastern Alabama. His name is Micah Messer, and he has also committed to sponsoring abolition bill if he's elected. He's also running against the Republican incumbent. But it's not just legislators. So we actually sent out a survey to every candidate running for legislature. It's over 300 candidates in the state of Alabama, Republican and Democrat. And also sent a survey to every candidate for governor. I think there's 8 candidates for governor. Well, I think there's 8 Republican candidates for governor. And all but 2 of the candidates for governor have returned our survey. 100%.
Wow.
Yes score on that. So the only ones that have not are Lindsey Blanchard and the incumbent, Kay Ivey, which is
not much of a surprise.
It's good that you use the names. Use the names, man.
Yeah. Kay Ivey, before she was governor, in an interview with Dallas Morning News, acknowledged that she did not feel like we should treat abortion like murder, even though she is pro-life.
Right.
And then as governor, she signed House Bill 314, which passed in 2019, which was a bill that said that it was making abortions illegal if a woman knew she was pregnant. So it was seen as a very staunch ban. Now, as an abolitionist, I opposed that bill. There were numerous problems with it.
And you knew it was a charade. You knew it was a trick, too.
Yes. Yes. But to a lot of people, they actually thought it was a stringent ban. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, people today, someone in my church a few weeks ago asked me, this is like someone I know, I see them all the time, and he asked me why I'm still going to the abortion mills if abortion's illegal in Alabama.
I know. Yeah, it's crazy.
3 years on.
I got that last Sunday. We
so
just passed a fake one in Oklahoma. It's just like, oh my gosh.
It's amazing how both sides, conservative and liberal media, will play up pro-life bills. So HB 314 is not a good law, and Ivey signed it. But even as weak as it is, she issued a statement saying she would not enforce it because we need to obey the Supreme Court. And even if we don't like the Supreme Court's rulings, we have to follow them.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to grab our pamphlet because I actually quoted that statement in her pamphlet.
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
Yeah, because, I mean, it was like press release type stuff, like, I'm signing this, but I know that this isn't doing anything because the Supreme Court. Like, our guy, Kevin Stitt in Oklahoma, he has like a weaker version. It's just like in an interview. He'll be like, I'm proud to sign every pro-life bill and be a champion for life, blah, 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 blah. We'll see what the courts do with this, like telegraphing that, this is not going anywhere. But pro-lifers still celebrate it. And
yeah, so she signs this bill that supposedly makes abortion illegal from conception, but she says as she signs it, no matter one's personal view on abortion, we can all recognize, at least for the short term, this bill may similarly be unenforceable. As citizens of this great country, we must always respect the authority of the U.S. Supreme Court, even when we disagree with their decisions.
Yeah.
And so she says this to the public, and what happens a few months after the passage of this bill? Planned Parenthood announces a new mega clinic in Birmingham.
Oh yeah.
Because they see these words from the governor of the state, and they know nothing's happening.
Well, yeah. I mean, even if they didn't see those words, I think that the game's been played by all these people so much they just know. Like, I mean, we just passed SB 612, and they're talking about building a new abortion mill in Oklahoma. It's like you got some people like coming up to me in the hall at church going, "You did it!" And I'm like, "Ah!" And then someone else is like, "Hey, did you see they're building another abortion mill in Oklahoma?" I mean, it's just they kind of have confusion, but it's from the pro-life. Like you said, it's from the pro-life media and the pro-choice media.
Yes,
they all hype it up.
And that Planned Parenthood that they announced shortly after that bill was signed into law, it was a repeat of what happened in Texas with the video you did years ago. Mm-hmm. How the Planned Parenthood in Birmingham, before that, it was on a back street, hardly any traffic.
Right.
You could stand right next to their vehicles and just in a normal voice talk to people that were going inside. Now, the new Planned Parenthood is right next to the freeway. It is very noisy. People park in the back of the building, and you can not get very close to them.
Yeah.
And so they've actually made it harder for us, even being on the sidewalk, to reach women going into Planned Parenthood.
And then
but it's not. Go ahead.
I was just saying, and then you'll be arguing with pro-lifers about these. They're like, you should celebrate these things. They shut down 4 clinics. There used to be 5 clinics, and now there's only 1. You should be celebrating this. And you're like, that one is like a fortress, and you can't even minister there. And it meets all of the pro-life requirements. They're killing the same number, but it allows the pro-lifers to celebrate because they shut down a certain number of mom and pop, dirty shops. But like, this is the sort of thing where we are always saying this, and we're always looking like the bad guys are being negative and so on and so forth. But it's just a game that's being played.
Yes, and it's not just the Governor Ivey. It's other leading Republicans in our state.
Yep.
The bill author herself actually said that she hopes that the law is never enforced.
Yeah. Do they all get like 100% pro-life approvals from like the pro-life establishment in the state? Or
yeah, I mean, the pro-life establishment is kind of nebulous. There isn't actually a group called Alabama Right to Life. There's a thing in Birmingham, but there's kind of a vacuum here that I think Abortion Alabama might be able to exploit as far as like a centralized anti-abortion group that is really putting pressure on legislature. But the bill author, she said that her reason for the bill was just to force the Supreme Court to consider this issue, and then if they said this bill is constitutional, then a lesser bill would be, and then we should go and amend it and make it simpler. Our Speaker of the House, Republican, he also said something very similar to the bill author, that I support this bill. I don't know what support means to them. He supports the bill, but he hopes it's never enforced because it's too strict. And if it was ruled constitutional by the Supreme Court, we should go and make a more lenient law to permit more abortions. Yeah. Fortunately, he is retiring this year, but the man who is in line to be Speaker of the House next session is likely not going to be any friendlier to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, that's how it is in most places. But hopefully that'll be changing soon. In Alabama, like you said, there isn't as much of an established pro-life presence there. And so hopefully, you guys are able to kind of step into that and bring a lot of people who maybe aren't even as brainwashed as pro-lifers and maybe some other states are by the pro-life groups, because there isn't as much of that. And so maybe you guys will have an easier time than we've seen in other states so far.
Yeah, I mean, like I talked to James about this before with our Alabama Baptist Convention last year. As people were doing a Baptist Convention around the country, we had a plan to bring the abolition resolution here in our state, and we didn't end up showing up to do that, but just a random pastor who we did not know moved to amend their pro-life resolution to remove the part that said encourage legislature to further regulate abortion and replace it with encourage legislature to abolish abortion.
Yeah, I remember.
And
that was awesome.
The people in the resolutions committee didn't even know what he was doing. They just said, yeah, that sounds good, let's change it. They didn't vote on it. They just amended it because he asked for it. So hasn't been a lot of that conversation here in our state.
And that's such an important insight right there. Like the fact that the Baptist leaders in Alabama, they didn't think, abolish abortion, we need to try to fight against this amendment, as they did in every other state almost
where there's been stronger abolitionist presence. Like like the abolitionists, like in Oklahoma, like the abolitionist pastors will be like scheming, like, how do we write this thing and pass it? And while they're doing that, there'll be like these pro-life pastors that are like, how do we like stop the abolitionists before they do their thing? And so it's like you kind of don't have that situation set up.
And you don't have it because there isn't as much of a pro-life organization presence in the state of Alabama.
Yeah.
And so again, that's something that all of us, probably you as well, Paul, have dealt with, is abolitionists are mean because we criticize the pro-lifers, but it's like, no, the absence of an established pro-life kind of flagship organization in the state is what makes pastors in your state more open to the idea of, let's just abolish abortion.
Yeah. No one's showing up to say this is bad for all these bogus reasons.
Yeah, and they don't have a long track record of bad fruit on that too. Well, different kinds of bad fruit, but they can't say, "Hey, well, look at all my pro-life accomplishments and point to bills that did nothing ultimately."
Yeah, that's true.
As like a point of pride as well. So
yeah, because I think sometimes they see what we're asking them to do as sort of like a slam on what they have done, and so there's that pride element. But if you've had basically no pro-life victories to sort of defend. I mean, that's a big problem in Oklahoma. It probably is going to like rear its head in Alabama the more you do. Like people will kind of come out of the woodwork to oppose. But I think one of the most important things I think every state needs an organization like yours, multiple organizations. And it's not just to get candidates to win and to tell people what bills are good, but it's to engage in these battles and then expose this stuff when it happens. Because I think a lot of times abolitionists sound kind of like we're wearing foil hats or we're just like making stuff up. Like we'll say pro-lifers kill bills of abolition, and people are like, you're lying, you're misrepresenting these people. And then no, it actually does happen, but they don't know about it unless there's an organization that's willing to say, here's what they did, here's what they said, here's what happened. I think it's exposing unfruitful deeds of darkness. So
yeah,
it's a very important job. And yes, when you do it, people are going to say you're being mean or you're infighting or what, but they don't realize that the fight really isn't just pro-choice versus pro-life or people want to murder babies. There's this element of delaying it, compromising, so on and so forth. Yeah. So praise God that we got that going on in end abortion, Alabama.
Yep, yep. And so we are actually in the last episode of the month of April. So before we get to the drawing for the drawing, Paul, one last time, how can people connect? Oh, did you have something else you wanted to touch on?
Yeah,
I wanted to go a little more into what we're planning for end abortion in Alabama.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, so Alabama has never had an abolition bill introduced in our legislature. Back in the early 2010s, there was a move for personhood, and there was a bill introduced here that got out of committee that would have removed the technically in Alabama, abortion is illegal murder. Life is defined at the beginning at conception, and then there's a clause that says if it's a legal abortion, you can't be prosecuted for murder.
Yep.
So we had a bill that was going to remove that. So that would make abortion murder. But it got down to the last day of session, sine die, and it was on the docket to be heard. But, they just didn't have enough time to get to it. They did have time to vote on our official state cake.
Yep.
But I'm sure if they just had another hour, they would have gotten his such an important bill.
State cake is important.
We vote on state steaks in Oklahoma. I don't know what you guys are doing with the cake, but
we're very concerned about we're very concerned about Bigfoot tourism as well.
Yeah, we can vote on making Bigfoot a protected species, but we can't criminalize abortion because it just didn't make it to the schedule. But this is another one of the things that you're exposing, that they do this. Yeah. People don't realize that they do this. They'll put it on the last day and then run out of time.
Yeah, so we have had some strong bills brought by our legislators who believe abortion is murder. That legislator is out of the House now that brought that bill. Bill Fortenberry, who I think Russell knows at least.
Yeah.
He lives here in Alabama, so he was involved in those efforts several years back. But there hasn't really been like a comprehensive, abolition bill that is going to be overturning all the bad pro-life laws and dealing with the how murder should be treated legally,
like a nullification bill and a criminalization.
And yes, exactly. And the nullification part directly saying our state motto is we dare defend our rights. And as citizens of Alabama, we are going to enforce justice and care for the unborn no matter what. And so to that end, our legislative session is over. Our next legislative session doesn't begin, I think, till next March, actually. Our primary, though, is in 4 weeks. Before the primary, we are hoping to be able to run ads on Facebook and Google, and even get mailers out into a few specific districts of some of the legislative candidates who have returned our surveys, and who we would like to alert the voters in those districts to which candidates have come on record supporting abolition and which have not. So within the next week or so, we would need to pull the trigger on that. So please go to endabortional.org and to give us a donation. It just depends on how much money we're able to raise, how many districts we can hit with that. We might hit 2 or 3, maybe we can hit 7 or 8, depending on how much money we can raise.
Yeah.
Besides that, you can, if you live in Alabama, please go to our website and subscribe to our email list. Please follow us on Facebook. If you have any questions, you can email us through the website, or you can directly message me over Facebook, Paul Abbott II. And even if you live in other states, like I've already said, I've been involved not just in political efforts in various states, but also I go out to the abortion mills in a lot of different states. I'm planning to go to the Planned Parenthood in Asheville, North Carolina, this Saturday. My first time being over there, so I get around a bit. So if you just have questions generally about anything related to this, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Yep. And not only if you live there, but also if you know anyone who lives in Alabama. So if you know anyone at all who's Christian, who's pro-life, abolitionist, whatever, they're in the state of Alabama, please make sure to put them in touch with endabortional.org, have them get on the email list, get connected with Paul and DJ and Megan and everyone doing good work there, because this is exciting. Like you said, an organization stepping in, trying to be an organizing force for the movement in a state that hasn't had that organizing force before, and in a state where you would think, based on the makeup of that state, where an abolition bill may have a decent chance. And so, make sure everyone that you know in Alabama is connected with these guys, so that they can be aware of what's going on.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, you're looking in the next week. So people watching this tonight, watching this now, you can give a little money to an organization is going to hold a candidate accountable to what they've said, and be good. And you don't need to be in Alabama to give. People need to understand that. And helping a state where things are going on does help you in your state. The more we see in more states, because states will look at each other and they'll kind of say, well, are we going to do this here? Well, they're doing it there. They're doing it there. So it is all very, very, it's more important that you give to things like this than it is that you buy $5 lattes twice a day, or 6 times a week, or whatever it is. So there's plenty of money to be
Russell letting
spent.
us know a little bit about his budgeting there.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was a projection.
No, that was my desire. I just do it every other day. No, but people are gonna be like, I'm not giving to Free the States anymore. That guy buys $5 lattes. Edit that out. But no, so at the end of our show, we always do ask people, hey, support Free the States. We do this stuff. We need more money, and we give all the people all the reasons why we need more funding, so we can, right now, we've got Sam here. He's asked a girl to marry him. We got to pay this guy more, stuff like that. Yeah. There's the awkward statement. People are like, he didn't say anything awkward the whole show. But yeah, it's
just a matter of opinion, Russell.
Yeah. I didn't feel awkward when I said anything awkward. But yeah, people gotta keep their lights on and all that kind of stuff. But also there's just so much happening, and we don't have a problem asking for people to support us and for people to support you at the same time, because let's face it, there is a lot of money that's being spent on a bunch of rubbish, that, people could support all these groups, all these candidates in a way beyond what they are already doing.
Yeah,
and I usually don't say stuff like that.
It's not even a matter of just cutting out the $5 coffees and giving to organizations like End Abortion, your organization, End Abortion Alabama. It's just diverting money that's going to pro-life organizations that aren't doing anything and giving it to good organizations like yours, Paul, and like Free the States and other abolitionist organizations that are doing this work.
True.
But to that end, we have a drawing that we're about to do.
Yeah,
it's the end of the month, as James said. And we give away some artwork, custom or hand-drawn, pen and ink artwork. Russell here drew.
It's all going to be worth absolutely nothing if we don't succeed in abolishing abortion. But if we succeed, people will be like, man, I have the original pen and ink that was for the sticker that Free the State sold back in circa 2021 to 2023.
Mm-hmm. And we are going to succeed in abolishing abortion.
Yeah,
so just
clearly we are.
Name that and claim it.
I'm not naming it and claiming it. I'm just post-milling it. But
he's just reading the scriptures. He's just reading what the Bible says.
It's all going to be underneath his feet. Come on. So anyway, we do. That's one of the things that we do. We give we give away the my doodles to people who support us.
Yeah, let's get a good shot of that real quick. Put it up to that camera, would you?
This camera?
That's what it looks like. It's
Equal
the
rights
pen ink
for all people.
for this. Yep. For this month.
Signed by T. Russell Hunter. That is the Russell Hunter.
And a little AHA symbol there.
That was probably, I don't know, 25 cents worth of ink right there.
Yeah, very pricey right there. It's cool, though. I would like this for myself, even. So we might not give it away.
Well, you can have it.
No.
Oh, sorry. So I was like, I never got that in the mail. It's like, Sam's using it as a bookmark.
Yeah, so if we could, maybe draw one of those. And, Paul, would you read it for us?
Yeah, so we did this with, who did we do this with?
Laura Clausen.
Laura Clausen, read it.
4 episodes ago.
Wayne Groovy? All right, so.
That was, Russell always has to spill out at least 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah. Here's the deal. This is a surprise. See, people are like going, there's no way that Sam actually has a fiance. They're just making this whole thing up. Everyone is saying that.
Everyone has been saying that.
Yeah. I have been saying it for everyone. So to prove that that it is indeed a real person and not just like a hologram or like a something, Hannah, you can draw. so like, let's make sure that like there's a physical hand. It's not just my hand. People are like, man.
Yeah.
So if you could move in forward, well, you can move your whole body. It doesn't matter. Just as long as there's a physical. Okay. See, look, that is not my hand. See.
I hope it's getting. It is viewed on one of the cameras.
It's viewed on one of the cameras.
Yeah.
And then now
hold it up. Show that right for Paul there.
For Paul, put it in front of his.
Put it right in front of his. This is a process right here.
Can you read that, Paul?
Is it the right way?
I can't. It's out of frame.
Is it turned the right way? Is it right?
It's above. It's being held above the camera.
Oh, the camera's below on this.
Yeah, the camera's below.
Can you see it now?
Too far away from it.
Man, we're gonna have to send this person an extra.
It's coming closer. It's coming closer. Right there. Hang on. Aubrey Miracle.
Aubrey Miracle.
Wow. It's like they're gonna have like a. That's like they won before. What the? Alan's won. Now Aubrey's won.
Oh, wow. We had to shrink these down because, and Rachel must have forgot to take out maybe a winner, or was it Alan and then Aubrey?
No, this is Aubrey.
This is Aubrey.
Oh, was it Alan who won last time?
Or was it Aubrey? Hey, you know what? Glitches, they have supported us for a long time, so they might as well have 2 pieces of art in their house. Mm-hmm. Maybe they can sell it to Sam.
Yeah. I'm offering you right now, he says 15 cents on ink. I will give you 16 cents.
Oh, man. I feel so insulted. But no, anyway, so thank you, Miracle family, for continuing to support Free the States. Everybody else who supports Free the States, thank you. You lost. But you
next time, though, you have another opportunity.
But you could win in the future.
Everyone who supports us on a monthly basis, I think it's any donation that's reoccurring every month.
Yeah,
will be entered to win every month. So you can get yourself a custom pen and ink drawing that we have used for our printed materials and other things that have been used to educate the culture about.
I think we need to start like selling James's services. Like James will write emails for you.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I feel like all my art's being just used here.
It's wonderful. People love it.
But anyways, even if you don't win, you get 15% off.
Here's what we can do. We can auction off my art. That's what we'll do.
Yeah.
Oh, next month we're going to give away an original James Silverman drawing.
Yes. Well, James, he does these incredible prints that he does. He puts all kinds of paint on his face and he shoves it into a white canvas. It's really beautiful. Anyways,
you're gonna want it. I just got we're losing donations.
Yeah. It's really rough textured right in the chin area where he's got that facial hair. So it's really cool. Wow. You'll want one of them.
Yeah, we'll figure out how to do this. Yeah. We'll give away something from James.
Okay,
sorry for all the foolishness, Paul. Thank you for joining us so much. Yeah. Paul, it was really great to have you on, and I think people are gonna really enjoy this episode. So thanks for coming on.
And everybody, please go to endabortional.org.
Yep.
Right now, and help this brother out. Great organization. We're glad you came on, and we hope lots of people. We hope we get you the Liberator Podcast bump.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And this has been episode 90 of the Liberator Podcast, where we're committed to being as harsh as truth and as uncompromising as justice. We'll see you next week.